A lot of cheeky maps, a lot of open maps as well as we head into game number 1. It is a French mirror, Crackedy to the south and Divine to the north.
Regions. It's perfect for this matchup because now everyone gets to show their region bias. Are you an NA fan or are you an EU fan? Because these two are cheeky and cheesy in their own special ways. You don't even have to say it's a particular playstyle. DivineDFP versus Crackity here. Likely our closest series of the day, if we're being completely frank. And well, that closeness, the small differences might add up because we do begin with a French mirror. For those that haven't seen regions before, this is a map where, as it was just by the name, the resources spawn in regions. You've got deer on the west side, berries on the east, and gold rather in the center alongside stone. So you will see players usually kind of rapid out of their base. Interesting thing about a French mirror is both players are likely to try to go for a secondary TC. And what could be even more interesting is because neither necessarily benefits a lot from berries, they might both rear towards the deer side.
And of course the gold in the middle, KP. Like, we're looking at two French players over here. You only start with 2 small deposits of gold back at home. Especially if this game gets to like mid to late Castle Age, there is going to be a lot of fighting going on for that middle gold area.
It's interesting you say that because, like, historically, you know what most French mirrors kind of like devolve into, don't you? it's mass spears. Like, it's actually ridiculous how often it becomes that. But because of the way that lights get kind of finicky, and usually because you go multiple TCs, you kind of play defensive anyway to a certain extent. I've seen plenty of French mirrors. If you can't end the game fast, if you can't eke out like a 4 or 5 knight advantage, it turns into spears. And the crazy part is even if you get that knight advantage, the other player ends up going spears because of that, right? And then what's your reaction? Usually to go spears as well. I'm saying it because, especially with DivineDFP, he's been involved in a lot of those in the past, where you just see like 50 spearmen on the field on both sides, and both people stuck in feudal age.
He definitely is someone that likes to change the meta up every once in a while. Not in a dramatic fashion, but he does have these out-of-the-box approaches every once in a while. Now, looks like we do have a bit of a discrepancy when it comes to the feudal age timings over here. Crackity getting a bit of a head start over Divine. Normally it's not a big deal, but when you look at the French, this kind of tells you that Crackity is going to have the first knight on the field, he's going to be the aggressor, and Divine is going to have to hold back his initial knight to defend against that.
I think the difference there came from, like, the gold is a similar distance, right? Their mills were built about the same time. It looks like the difference might have been possibly the way DivineDFP clubbed sheep. Maybe he used multiple villages by accident, because it looks like he clubbed 1 or 2 additional sheep compared to Crackity. And that would explain what happened there, because it seemed like there was a difference in food drop-off timings. So he was, 5, 6, 7 seconds behind on his food. And, well, the follow-up looks even worse when you consider that Crackity is already underway with the wheelbarrow. But Divine, even though he's got the mill, he hasn't got the wood. Or has he? He should. Has he just forgotten?
Yeah, he's definitely missing out on that timing.
Yeah, there you go. He just got the wood. Yeah, so he was heavily delayed there. That's another stinger because it means, like, if you mirror the knight and you don't address it but go on the offensive as well, there's a chance that Crackity is going to have wheelbarrowing time to evade, and you might not.
Yeah, every single thing that we have here so far, Crackity seems to have like a couple of seconds advantage at the very least. It doesn't seem like it's much, and as I'm saying that, looks like Crackity wasn't able to queue up the knight initially, and as a response to being delayed the feudal age, Divine actually sent another villager on the landmark, so he's finishing it with 5. So he's not going to miss out that much on that knight timing after all.
But he will miss out on efficiency, right? Because he built a school of cavalry on the east side, so he now has to walk either out to the gold or back towards the sheep without wheelbarrow. Crackity kind of had a similar issue. His is kind of funky because he chose to place his school of cavalry north side of his TC, but the cool thing there is you can do the garrison trick, right? So you actually lose less time than DivineDFP did.
Yeah, one thing to note here is that Divine's gold is offset to the east, whereas if you look at Crackity's base, his gold is all the way to the back. So when you look at that, Crackity has a much better opportunity to defend his gold mine and also to aggress Divines, and that's something that Divine is going to have to keep in mind. Would not be shocking to see Divine play very defensive, especially at the initial part of Feudal Age. He ends up pulling away all the villagers from the gold, actually.
A nice initial hit there. So that's the edge, and Divine won't necessarily want to engage. Yeah, Crackity. You're such a cheeky git. Like, I mean, so most players wouldn't want to immediately do that because DivineDFP just complete the charge, right? So he has the bonus damage. If DivineDFP continued, then Crackity would have lost more health. But Divine's paranoid because he knows Crackity's ahead in Knight production, so he can't risk that second Knight turning up if he chases.
Yeah, I feel like Divine is a little confined into his base over here. Scout back at home, Knights back at home. It's not like he's contesting map control much, and that's something that Crackity could start exploiting soon.
Scout is going to snoop out a lack of more goals, so this shows what DivineDFP is up to. I hate to say I was right, Lidakor, but it has divulged into this. Meet your French mirror meta. It's going to be mass space. Oh god, I mean, like, I'm acting as if it's the end of the world. It's kind of like the old school Abbasid mirrors. It's not fun to watch. If they both now mass 50 spears, you know what I'm getting at here, Lidakor. Like, mass spears on mass spears. Like, anyone who's ever watched like 20 Dark Age spearmen fight each other know exactly what I'm getting at here. It's not it's not an intense affair to watch.
Yeah, a lot is going to come down to how you use these knights, though. You have a lot of spears, potentially, as you said. It will really come down to whoever can get a couple of villager picks without getting massacred by those spears.
I think for Crackity, he should have seen this, so now you just drop archery range. Like, you have Knight advantage, and I don't think Divine's going to catch up because of these choices he's making. So Crackity's probably going to try to snipe 1 or 2 villages. If he ever achieves that, you'll see him drop like 1 or 2 archery ranges straight away. Oh, going in. This is one of those fights where like you feel like you outnumber the spearmen, and then you kind of forget the knights are still a thing. It's not a great fight to take. Instead, he just dives onto the villages. He says, I've had enough of this crap. And barely gets away with all 4 knights. So, looks a bit clowny, but actually worked out marvelously well for Crackity.
Yeah, he's...
The follow-up, however, that's bad. That's really bad.
Now, that's a caster curse if I've ever seen one. He's lucky to get out with 3 knights over there. He was coming back with those heavily damaged knights, trying to get some more damage done. You feel like he tried to just maximize his damage output, willing to risk the lives of those knights. He ended up losing just 1, which is fairly good for the circumstances, actually.
Yeah, but the problem here is, like, for Crackity, the reason he's being maybe a bit gung-ho is because he's played DivineDFP. I've cast DivineDFP lots of times. I know exactly what he's doing. It's obvious even before he went to the Stone. He's a multi-TC. This is the type of guy that would probably drop 3 TCs on your ass as French. He's done it time and time again. He used to be, like, one of the most annoying French players to encounter Hill and Dale because of these type of strats that he's been doing essentially since release. And he's going to get a great secondary TC on this backward deer. Meanwhile, Crackity, he had no intent of going Stone. He's only just switched. It means he's going to be behind because he couldn't snipe any villages.
Yeah, Spearman out there for Divine, but he only has 2 knights to work with. Whereas for Crackity, he's going to pull back those knights, he's going to heal them up, and then try to get another run going. But he's going to miss out on the eco here. Divine is going for a 2nd TC, and he still has 100 stone in the bank. Makes me wonder if he wants to go for a 3rd.
Yeah. I'm going to repeat myself here. I know DivineDFP. And I know what he does. I mean, honestly, I'm just trying to weigh up whether it's 3 TC or 4. Considering that they cost more nowadays, probably 3 TC. But this is the type of guy that, even with the heavier costs that we see compared to the original like things, it's still probably on his mind. Like, even with the bigger build times and all that crap, all the nerfs they've done, he's still like stroking his chin right now, wondering.
Well, he stopped mining stone, and he hasn't dropped the 2nd DC, so I'm actually still wondering what that 100 extra stone is for. On the other side, Crackity kind of did the same thing, actually. Oh yeah, there is going to be 2 towers for arrow slits. Likely the same for Crackity. Though Crackity's gold is already secure, so you wonder if he actually needs that.
I'm actually surprised. If he doesn't go for 3rd TC, this shows great like maturity and evolution for DivineDFP. I think there's been plenty of games which, I don't know if you know this, Lidakor, but spamming TCs can usually lose you games. And there's definitely been plenty of those for DivineDFP. If the people aren't getting what I'm getting at here, I'm saying it's not always a good idea to make 6 TCs.
Definitely not. It's just the current meta is so heavily focused on economical expansion. Oh, that's a villager gone, right?
I don't know. Did he lose one?
No. The UI should say that the bottom left. I think the villagers survived, popped out on the other side. There's a low HP bill, actually 2 low HP bills. Nice move from Crackity, keeping everyone alive.
But the best part about that was the garrison into arrow fire upon the wolf was like the most redundant thing ever. Yeah, he just about kept it up.
It's so chaotic, but yeah. And anyway, the current meta is so focused on the economical expansion that we are seeing players just go for more and more TCs because it's so difficult to punish oftentimes.
Now, this is a really good play by Crackedy. Like, you know, because of this TC mirroring on both sides, neither's going to go for a third, but Divine's already shown his hand by going spears. He has no map control. Crackedy's doing the right thing here. He needs to play out onto exploitative areas. That's what he done with the one towards the deer stacks by going for Bullberry. It's what he's doing with the deer stack behind his base. I don't think DivineDFP is going to punish this, at least for the next 5 minutes. Just a great read. And that's also a cool thing, Lidakor, of like understanding the play style of your opponent. DivineDFP is historically a very defensive player. He's always been renowned for it. That TC point I made is honestly accurate, and it plays into that defensive style because he likes to kind of just boom up into a late phase of the game and come ahead economically.
Speaking of which, he's going to try to take the second boar here, something that will be spotted by Crackedy instantly. He's trying to pull it away, trying to kill it away from the mill, and he does.
My efficiency. Oh, wait, I'm playing French. That's just 25 wood. Bye. That would have been a big deal against like any other Civ than the one that only spends 25 wood.
Well, at least you tried.
By the way, that is why people build mills after they kill the boar. There really is no reason to build a mill prior because you gather so much food anyway, right? But that's a little like lesson for people of why you always wait on the mill.
Yeah, once you have those 2 towers complete, this is going to look like an AI base from a campaign.
It really is. It's efficient, guys, because all the choke points stop the knights from killing ya. If he starts building farms around that after, oh, think how pretty that'll look, Lidakor. It's like a little pad, you know.
You're joking about it, but he's actually walling that part off. There are some very conveniently located forests out there, so that might actually be a secure spot in the future.
We're home. Burn it. Just burn it. Like, I actually think you could just stay here and burn it. Yup. Get him, boys! Well, he's about to double his advantage on the eco count, right? 58 to 54. 4 inside, waiting to say goodbye to their life. And not enough spearmen here to deter him, so that should be a slaughtering Crackity. Crack. I think he's on crack. All the villagers get away! Oh, no! Oh, that auto torch.
I feel like it's still okay for Crackedy. He's been just using this as a diversion because he's on the way to Castle Age. He's going up into Guild Hall, actually, planning for a long game, perhaps. Does not want to commit to Royal Bloodlines. Instead, he's just going for that additional economical expansion. And with these knights harassing that gold mine, Divine was distracted. He wasn't able to punish this early Castle Age.
Yeah. I mean, he's been busy putting out fires. So now you're DivineDFP. You have no map control. You've walled yourself in. You have 2 TCs and loads of outposts. What is the one you can build to recover this game?
Spears. Spears. Spears.
Yes. yeah, that's right. You say, what you do is you go, Alexa, play Britney Spears, Hit Me Baby one more time. And then you just keep mashing Q on your axes. Like, it's literally his only play here. But it's very obvious very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly well visible that he's committing to Spearman, just looking at this horde chasing down the knights here from Crackedy. Crackedy, as a response, he's making his own Spearman.
Yeah, but and they're better, remember. It's Castle Age versus Feudal Age Spear. This is like the most insulting but simple way to beat your opponent. He can't mass knights now, which is his only real comeback power unit in Feudal Age. And he can't mass spears because yours are going to be better. And also, the reason why he's confident to do this without being assaulted is Divine can't go on the offensive, remember, because he didn't complete the walls. And there are knights now riding to the back line.
Oh, Lord, this DC should not be enough for all these villagers nearby, and that is a great opportunity for Crackedy. Pushes the villagers into the TC, but there are still way too many to be slain. Finally, some good value for those knights for Crackedy.
Say that, I haven't killed a single villager yet.
We can always hope.
Probably one. Oh, there we go. The split off is good. I mean, this is just look at the eco shrinking right now. This is beginning of the end, I think. We're now seeing Rams. So Divine is going on the offensive, but buddy, I got bad news for you. The Spearmen are counting up and your chances of winning that fight on the second TC are going down.
Yeah, Crackedy is going to be at 26 spears in a moment. You see, he's got 17 queued up, and let's not forget, you do have that extra attack upgrade as well that comes in for free from the blacksmith for the French. So it's not just the veterancy difference between the spears, it's also the fact that you will have that +1 extra attack for those.
If you really want to just tote Divine, just get the melee defense upgrade. Like, legit, at that stage, your spin will do no damage in this fight. They're not going to do any damage anyway. Here we go. Rounds being ignored. The keep drop. Crackity is about to feel as safe as possible. Like hugging your mum. Just feels warm and safe. And now that is a 500 wood investment that has achieved a grand total of... Can you remind me of the number? How much has it achieved there, Lidakor?
Absolutely nothing, you feel.
There we go. Can I refund it?
Nope, you cannot. Those rams, you just can't get a refund for them. You gotta find a use for them, but you really have to wonder where. That keep is just coming in at the perfect time. Crackity saw the hordes of spearmen, and as you said, he knew exactly what the win condition was here for Divine. Went for the stone, got the keep going. Now it's Castle Age coming in for Divine, but you see the rams will be gone here as they get intercepted by the knights. And the spearman numbers are basically neck and neck now.
Hey, that was good. Those rams, they distracted the knights for a total of 6 seconds. I don't think that was worth it. He has got his tech up underway, but more knights are heading into his base right now. These villagers are wasting his time. Even if Crackity loses them, if it allows him to clean up the spears, it's worth it because he already has an eco advantage. And, you know, I don't even think he's going to lose all the villagers. Maybe one more? Because the extra spears are coming. So 3 of the villagers are going to live. Tech up is going to complete, yes, but you're not going to have an army to upgrade.
Yeah, nothing at all. He's got 5 knights. He's going up to the Royal Institute as well. So this is definitely one of those windows where he would want to grab the Royal Bloodlines, but he doesn't really have knights to grab it onto.
Honestly, I feel like I'm watching people go on a highway and want to switch lane there. As the spearmen go one way, the knights go the other. They're just taking it in turns. Like, yeah, we just had a party over in Paris. We're heading back to Versailles. Join us later. The tech up's complete, but this walling never completed, Lidakor. The whole point of going spearmen like this was to actually wall yourself in so you didn't get Benny Hills. He never walled himself in.
And these knights just keep coming back, oppressing these villagers. Frankly, Crackity only killed 7 vills throughout this entire game, but at least he idled a lot more. These knights have been oppressive.
The spearman upgrade feels so far away still. Like, you're just forced to take these fights. You'd rather not have to. But now we reach the desperation point, right? You spent so long exhausting your gold. Now you need to fight forward to get gold. Critical ingredient for French in any situation, even more so when you just complete a Castle Age timing. And you won't get it. And if Divine does not get gold, and get it soon, this will already be over.
Indeed, especially because the Arbaletri are now coming in as well. He's trying to switch into knights. You can see at the top of the screen in the unit queues. There is going to be a preemptive response from Crackity, not just the spears, but also the Arbaletri. Now the production buildings are exposed. You feel like there's a snowball starting to roll here rather quickly.
It's not as much a snowball as Divine's dead corpse flopping down the hill. It's looking grim, Lidakor. I think you're at a point where you've just been outplayed. There's no way back. You're going to lose the secondary TC. You still don't have gold access. He at least got his initial tech upgrades, but you won't get anything additional. He can't easily produce knights apart from poor trade. And you're never going to get your own Arbaletri. This is kind of cut and dry at this stage for Crackity.
Yeah, it's not a snowball. At this point, it's an avalanche, and it's just getting stronger and stronger. Knights will now be taken down. Divine losing the handful of valuable units he still has. Army value is so much better now for Crackity, and he's yet to show the Arbaletri on the other side of the field. And let's not forget, he's on a guild hall. He's not even on the more immediate impact landmark. Doesn't matter. Crackity, convincing game number 1 here, secures the first game here in Call to Arms.
You said snowball. It was more of a kick to the Bulls in the end. The Crackity off to a great start in what could still be a very close series, but you see how that small deviation, the blink first into Spearman and the defensive outlook of Divine was perfectly exploitable in that French mirror on an open map like Regions. But don't be too afraid that this is going to turn into a 3-0 stomp day, folks. Historically, DivineDFP, they have played 6 series. 4 have been won by Crackity, but Divine has won 2 of them. And in fact, this year alone, they are 50-50 split for Series 1 between them.
Yeah, this matchup has been neck and neck, and this is something that we've seen in many tournaments before. Not just EGC hosted majors, but also second tier events as well, the A tiers, the B tiers of the scene. These guys have been very active throughout the competitive scene, trying to get as much hours or as many hours into competitive gaming as possible. And it has shown as well. Both of these guys have progressed quite a lot. And as you said, they do usually have close matchups. Expect to see that for this set as well.
Mhm. And especially considering I think some of the maps that were chosen are more defensively oriented maps, ones where he'd probably have a better chance. But moving forward, as we look to the next games, big powerhouse point. I wouldn't be surprised if he leans on it this early on in the series. DivineDFP, we know he likes playing HRE in particular, and he does have map selection. I would expect that to be his next Civ choice, simply so he can get kind of like that confidence booster, because this game had to feel a little bit frustrating, right? It felt like you were just running around in circles for a good 20 minutes and not really getting much done.
It's one of the most frustrating things that can happen to you as a player when you have a good setup, but you still get out microed, you slowly lose villagers, and you just slowly see that game slip out of your grasp. It's not like a sudden moment, a single fight where you lose the game, or just a bad strategy choice. It's that slow attrition that takes that game away from you, and it oftentimes can be very frustrating, even for the highest level of players.
Ah, well, this has to be frustrating. I said HRE would be a good morale booster.
Ooh,
We've got to mention it was banned at the beginning of the series by both players. Obviously, Crackity doesn't get China either. That one's to be anticipated. DivineDFP, I don't know how much he's been practicing China recently. He might be saving that for maybe Lipany, if anywhere, but I assume he wants the Bastards there. Frisian Marshes, now that the French is gone, it could actually be Rus for Crackety, maybe? Possibly Mongols for Divine. But before we even get to that, we've got the English Malians matchup on Dry Arabia. This is a bit worrying again, I think, in this matchup. Like, DivineDFP has once again chosen what is usually seen as a very defensive Civ. I think Crackety, the type of openings you can make with the Malians, if Divine isn't willing to come out and block things like, Pro Scouts value, things like that, Crackety could just plow ahead and get a really strong castle age timing.
I agree. I feel like when you look at Divine, one of the things that we've always talked about in connection to him is his love towards these simpler civilizations. He loves to main one or two civs, and English and French have always been at the top of the list for him. So in a way, that English could be somewhat predictable from him, and I feel like, at least in a small way, we see a counter pick here from Crackety. I think he anticipated English coming here from Divine, and he's picking Malians, anticipating that English come in.
It's like if this was a Mr. style English, that could be interesting against the Malians openings. I just have a feeling it's not. I don't know. I haven't watched too many DivineDFP games recently, but I've never seen him as like an Abbey of Kings for aggression type player. Maybe Abbey of Kings just to be greedy, right? I think someone that's done that a lot in the past that comes to mind is Demu, right? Where he'd get Abbey of Kings, he wouldn't build any units, he'd just rush Castle Age for knights. Maybe that's on the table. But whatever it is from DivineDFP, on what could be a very open map against a very oppressive Civ, if given an opportunity, I would really like to see him set the tempo. And English can do that to a certain extent. It's not always the easiest, right? If you leave it too long, you try to go longbows and your opponent gets castle, you still have to deal with javelins. But an earlier phase in the game, just 4 to 6 longbows and a little bit of harassment could be the difference between a win or a loss here.
For sure. I feel like the concern here for Divine is that even if he goes for that Mr. style of playing English, playing to the horseman, playing to the abbey, that's something that the Malians will be more than happy with. They'll be willing to play into their warrior scouts and just grab professional scouts, bring in the carcasses. That's also a direction in which the Malians feel very comfortable. I think based on the current meta, it's tough to see a clear and well-defined win condition for the English when it comes to strategy choice. So a lot is going to come down to the actual execution that Divine is going to have. And right from the get-go, the first question that we'll have to ask, are we going to see Dark Age Men-at-Arms here?
It's actually a really good play against Malians because they build all their houses around the money camp. Now, those houses, ever since they were introduced, Malians did eventually get a buff to the health, right? So they're not as easy to torch down. But it might be worth like 1 or 2 MAA. I just don't know if it's really Divine's wheelhouse to want to do that versus just getting a quicker feudal timing. There's definitely merit to it. You could probably burn down at least 2 houses before any sort of counter comes out, and that would also, in the meantime, keep people off gold. But we've seen time and time again, Malians don't necessarily have to go on the gold once they have the houses up. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I feel like it's not going to yield you any game decisive advantage, but I feel like for Divine, he needs to find opportunities to make this game chaotic to throw off the Malians, and this could be a tool of accomplishing that. And I don't think there is many other things at the beginning of the game that he could do to throw off the Malians.
I think this game will not be decided by Divine's actions in Dark Age. It'll be defined by what he chooses to do in Feudal. And I think if he sits back, the Malian's timings could just kick him in the going ads. But we'll have to see if that's going to be the case. It definitely was the case in game number 1 when we had that French mirror. But now, mirrors are done. All right? That mirror has been cracked. It has been smashed. And Crackedy is now going to see if he can use those potent Malians to kick the crap out of the English.
We're jumping into game number 2 here. Divine versus Crackedy. Big matchup in their respective groups. As you said, these guys play so many close rounds here. And oftentimes in these tournaments, in these group stages, whoever comes up on top in these close matchups usually are the ones that make it to the next stage of the tournament. It's there are going to be opponents that you both lose to. There will be opponents that you both win against. A lot of times, it comes down to these very close sets, whoever gets to the playoffs.
And this is already looking like a better opening for Crackedy. Even with the 4th spawn gold, look how close those 2 golds are when you go up to Feudal Age. And on top of that, Divine's opening is not offensive at all. He didn't go for a Rax. He actually went for a mill immediately into a mining camp as well. I think this is kind of like, this is Divine already revealing his style of play ahead of time, as expected. And Crackedy's going to be able to exploit that to the fullest.
Yeah, mill coming up immediately out there. Wheelbarrow on the way for Divine. On the other side,
and then
it's
Crackedy should be full housing around the mining camp. I don't think he's worried about being threatened at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either. In fact, you see the minimap, he's just dropping all the houses out there. He knows fully well that there is basically nothing that could threaten him. Now, when you look at the second gold mine, it's actually very close as well. So if there is ever pressure coming towards the gold, you could perhaps deny both. But the bigger question is, how exactly are you going to put pressure on these gold mines early on with the English?
What the ever-loving fudge is that? Okay, so just move the screen down a tiny bit, Vodka. I want you to really process what's on one... No. On the gold, on the stone. I really want people to process the amount of resources on one screen there. Double stone, double gold, deer. You can see it all without moving the screen. Look at that!
That is ludicrous. It's just so awkward. Oh, man.
I mean, if there's... This is the sad reality. Is like, if there was some offensive play, Divine shuts down so much. If he doesn't shut... Like, he's scouting out now, right? If he doesn't open Lombos and do something about this, Crackedy's going to run away with this game. Because it's like, it's too efficient of an area. I don't remember the last time I saw such a ridiculous spawn on Dry Arabia.
Yeah, these spawns go both ways, right? Oh, whoa. You got to be cautious with the down center fire.
Giving 4 sheep over. I mean, that's definitely going to lead to an English farm transition. So good thing he didn't do that.
But yeah, like, these spawns, they go both ways. If you fall behind an army, you will lose control over all the key resources. But if your opponent isn't pressuring you, then you will have the safest kind of resource collecting operations for the first 25 minutes of the game. Like, it really comes down to what Divine can do against this.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't have been surprised if Crackedy dropped his defensive landmark in the middle of that just to be safe. But yeah, once again, I think it's playstyle logic. Like, he doesn't feel like he's going to be threatened. It would have been a risky outpost to drop there anyway, but it's more DivineDFP isn't likely to push. We can see he's still chilling at home, and DivineDFP, he was very delayed on dropping that council hall. You can already see he has 80 additional food and very much clear on the gold. A little bit of a whoopsie there. I don't know if he macroed and he didn't have villagers queued or something, but he was delayed by at least, I'd say, 5 to 10 seconds. Very big difference when you're already this far behind.
That is more than concerning. Look at that. Council Hall also only being built with 3 villagers. There is going to be a massive difference in feudal age timings. And you just said this. with the English, you kind of want to be the aggressor over here. You want to punish that spawn that Crackedy has for the gold and stone mines. That's not going to be a thing here. Crackedy can do whatever he wants, and you see he actually has a lot of gold in the bank already. Professional scouts could be on the menu, perhaps. We could see cattle being considered. So many options are available for Crackedy because Divine is so late to feudal over here. In fact, I'm starting to wonder what the plan is here, because this is a very pedestrian pace for that feudal age.
Hey man, it's intentional. I do this all the time. It's not that I'm suboptimal, it's just I want my opponent to choose the military building first so I can counter it. So this is a very big brain strategy. But no, it's going to be multiple TC. Do I need to give the monologue again about DivineDFP and TCs? I think we get it by now. He likes town centers, but this means Crackedy, once again aware of this, I wouldn't be surprised if he rushes Castle Age. Like, he easily could. You could maybe get 2 or 3 horsemen, War Scouts, just in case there's a few Lombos. But, yeah, other than that, there's not really a threat here. And, well, Crackedy's a little bit paranoid. You saw that, right? He decided to go for an alternative location for his second gold mine, even though he could have easily had double pit mine on the same screen.
I'm somewhat surprised. He knows that his opponent isn't in feudal age yet, so he should know that there is not much pressure coming. But then again, when you look at this build from Divine, it's a slow feudal age, right? We see everything, Crackedy does not. So Crackedy obviously needs to be cautious about this. He's yet to scout the stone being mined, but he should know something is up. Because if you wanted to longbow rush, this would be a very late timing.
The good news is, because you're playing against the Malians and they're not going to like aggro you too early, you get your TC up, right? And English TCs are one of the most frustrating things to dive in the early game. Like, the double arrow fire is just absurd, right? But on the flip side, if you Castle Age rush as a Malian and you build javelin throws, those TCs tickle. And it's similar to longbows on a second TC, right? Where you just move in, you poke, you kill a villager, you move out. Only it's better because javelin throws base damage is actually really high.
Now, the thing I hate about the 2TC build here against the Malians is that when you play 2TCs, it takes some time until you return that investment. You have to get back the time that you spent with the villagers on the stone, on the wood. You have to get at least like 10-15 villagers out by the time they pay for the price of that second town center. On the other side, you look at Crackedy, he already has a lot of passive gold income coming from the pit mines. He's working with the cattle as well. He could technically even go for professional scouts, but it looks like that is not the direction that he's heading. So I feel like Crackedy's escalation is going to be a lot more rapid. He could possibly get to Castle Age, get the third pit mine going. So many options open up because of how passive Divine plays.
I'm not sure now, because Crackedy decided to invest feudal. Divine might be going fast castle with this TC. It's very defensive. It's insulated his farms. I actually like this play from Divine if it's fast castle. I just think the issue is now, because you're up against javelins, I don't know how you place your landmark, because you don't have anything but longbows, right? And javelins win. And the range difference means you can't even like skirt them, right? Because it's 7 tile range versus 6. This is about to be a very tough 3 minutes for Divine.
Yeah, it's going to be painful. It is going to be painful, especially because he's far away from Castle Age. Very far away when you look at the resources. And I think he's starting to run low on food underneath his town center. There are some farms being dropped. All of these things, 2 TCs, lack of food under the TC, these things will delay that Castle Age, opening up the opportunity for these javelin throwers to harass. And when you look at those lumberjacks, they're more than exposed, and there isn't really a good backup wood line for Divine to work with.
And that is the key ingredient here, because he needs them for the additional farms. But now, excuse me, he'll be able to keep his distance from the TC, but the longbows can poke and prod you. They don't hit very hard, but over time it can add up, right? But I'm just worried. I mean, if he now wraps around the other side with the javelins, like, you've got no wood. Like, this is risky in itself. Look how far away you are from safety.
Oh, that's so painful. And
he's on the way.
You look at those lumberjacks running, it means that Divine did not have a steady wood income. He cannot produce longbows, he cannot build farms. He's sitting on a single longbow at this point, and now the lumberjacks are exposed. Sure enough, Divine sees the javelins come in, but he has nothing to stop them with.
And he won't, because now you have to build stables, right? You don't have the wood for stables. Look at his wood. He has 53 to work with. There's enough javelins here to block both wood lines. His only option is to pull villagers. But do you want to know why you can't pull villagers here? even if you were like, able to reach them, you're not meleeing, right? So you're range attacking with 5 damage. Check the ranged armor on javelin throwers. You do no damage to them. There is literally no move Divine can make. His only choice is to rush a castle drop as soon as he has the resources required. And it's going to cost him several villages to do so.
And these javelin throwers, they have a long range here. They have 6 tiles range, actually. Means that they can harass those farmers a lot. You see, we have a couple of javelin throwers flanking from the north. They will be there to harass the farmers. They will be there to harass the gold miners even.
Here goes. White tile. Every village
37 wheels pulled.
I mean, you're going to lose villages. There's no doubt you're going to lose villages. You will get your tech up, but the price is going to be levied here. He's trying to micro away. Honestly, the more you micro away, the worse it gets, though.
Yeah, just
GC
commit.
coming in.
Oh, it's actually worse than that.
Go up, man.
15 villagers were garrisoned in the TC. They cleaned up 4 javelin throwers for a price of like 7 villagers. It just gets worse. Look at the villager count, KP. It's actually better for Crackedy.
Honestly, I mean, Crackity, he's got 15 javelins to his name. DivineDFP, he at least finally has a unit builder. The White Tower, not only a defensive landmark, he can now produce units out of it. It's his one lifeline, but the price is high. And he only has certain units he can build into here. Nothing wood-based is possible. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Crackity, he could easily just get eyeballs on this lumber camp again and snipe villages.
Yeah, not a single unit coming out here for Divine. He has no gold income right now, no wood income. He's just farming at this point. And you see Crackity, realizing that his opponent is in Castle Age, he's just going to get to Castle himself. This quote-unquote power spike for Divine will be gone in a moment.
Yeah, and you have to remember that he's got all that passive generation from the gold, right? So even though they're neck and neck on eco count, it's not that simple. Especially when you lose villages so simply like that. Oh, man. It's crazy. He knew this was coming, by the way. If you ever wanted to know how it was so obvious he knew it was coming, just look at the farms he built. He didn't build them fully around the mills, right? He wanted to try and stay close enough to always get to a TC. But it's just simply not possible, even with Wheelbarrow against this.
And now the Javelins just locked down so many farms as well. That investment in the farms is just not even paying off because of how many of those farms are being denied right now.
That is so bold and unexpected that he's going to get away with it. DivineDFP plays out into the deal on the left side. Crackity doesn't know. He wouldn't expect it either. It's just too risky. But behind this, Crackity now teching up. Remember, he had the cattle farms escalating. It is going to be the Grand Food Line of Corral. And we are indeed going to see the prepping of racks. Doesn't matter which he goes for. You go Musfadi, you go for the Donzos. Either one will easily deal with these knights that Divine is massing.
For sure. It's only 3 knights right now. You see Donzos already being queued up. They are here to chase down the Javelin throwers, but you gotta be cautious. I think the Javelins can fight back and take at least a couple of knights down.
Nah.
Looks like they won't fight, though.
They can't. Remember, it's Castle Age Knights. Their damage is heavily negated. Like, they're doing what? How much damage do they do at this point? It's like 9, maybe? And then they lose half it? It's a tickle.
Serviceable.
He'll get 1.
He's going to get 1. Yeah, that's good value for Feudal Age troops against Castle Age Knights.
Yeah, but still, it's pricey, remember. Each of these Javelins is 120 resources.
True.
You're not going to get a chance to upgrade them. But Donzos are being prepped. He has got to get them out of the Dark Age first, though. That's probably a good idea. He needs to do more. It's not enough to just clean up these Javelins. He now needs to go punish Crackity, because he should be anticipating that with no additional Javelins showing up, the tech up is already underway. Problem is, by the time he arrives, you're probably looking at like 8, 9 Donzos. That should be enough to defend against 2 or 3 knights. Here we go. Donzo's revealed. Divine is going to peel back. Now, Divine, he was forced to pound that deer. He hasn't walled anywhere, though. He hasn't secured an area. He's going to secure one soon, however. He's on the stone hard. This could be a third TC. In fact, I think it is. It is indeed. He just dropped a third TC back at home.
He kind of needs to. The passive gold income is just so massive for the Malians. Plus, of course, the passive food now. He needs to keep up. And don't forget, he lost a lot of villagers. Right now, it's a neck-and-neck thing with the eco. He needs a way to build up an eco lead over the Malians, which is extremely difficult, even with, like, the DC advantage.
I think this is too greedy, though. Like, too paranoid. Like, I was actually half okay with the idea of, like, a keep to try and secure something new. He needs walls, he needs something, because right now, like, Crackedy has full reign, and he's now adding in cavalry as well, right? So he's got into the spears, that's going to counter out, and then the cavalry can dive hard, especially now that the imported armors are coming in. These sofas are going to be nigh on unkillable. And what have you got to defend with? 3 TCs and a white tower. It does sound strong. The problem is, the things that it's defending are going to be exhausted very quickly at this stage of the game. Jesus, that wood line is, I mean, if he put this TC on the second wood line, I think it's better, and then you wall between. I just don't know if he's got enough fuel to keep the fire going 5 minutes from now.
Yeah, now you see Longbows will be mixed in over here for Divine, but you gotta be cautious with that. We are seeing some sofas appear on the other side, and once imported armor comes in, those sofas will start dominating everything that we have for Divine, actually.
Yeah, it's literally there already. And there we go. Scout gives vision. Time to throw some goodies in for the villagers to play with. They are sharp, though, so don't give them to kids under the age of 12, I'd say. Donzos. He just doesn't want to touch the Donzos at all, and that's problematic. He's not getting on those javelins. I would just run one sofa in at this stage. It's so worth it. Yeah,
well,
and then
how about
runs 4 of it. Woohoo! Bye-bye!
And Knights just have to flee because of the Donzos. Look at that.
The idle time alone.
Divine is just losing so much eco over here. He's now on 3 TCs, yet the villager count is basically dead even. He's got 39 idols right now. So much idle time, so much inefficiency, and he's still being deprived of wood. He's struggling to add longbows because of that, so those Donzos keep oppressing the few knights he still has.
And it's just, and keep in mind, that's right now, that's how much he's struggling to keep control of a resource that he's invested plenty of things to defend. Once that's gone, funnily enough, he is Donzo in this game. I just don't know how he's meant to claim new territory. He's now adding in longbows, which isn't a bad idea, right? But you're up against level 2 ranged armor, imported armor sofas. Let's click on those to really give the full picture here. That's how much armor at this stage? 6, 7 ranged armor? It's ridiculous.
It's a huge amount. It's kind of the big... This is why we talk about Malians having that gigantic power spike in Castle Age so frequently. Not just poison arrows, but imported armor. 2 techs that are among the most effective techs and upgrades available in the game.
And that snowball effect is kicking in because finally we are reaching for relics. Crackety's already banked 1. He'll have all 5 easily because Divine doesn't have what it takes to contest them. I do love the fact he's adding in crossbows. This is really what he needed, more so than longbows, to be honest with you. But you know, the question is it too late? Do you actually have enough resources within reach? If you can't access this gold, you're incredibly limited in how many crossbows you can scale. And he can't access it. So back to the drawing board we go. How much gold is left on that vein, by the way? I guess like 1K, maybe? If that?
Yeah, it has to be very low. We have seen a lot of knights having been invested into. That's a completely untouched vein, but the starting gold mine is basically near depletion.
So he can't afford to lose a fight here. He will have to throw everything at this. And if Crackedy reads this right and baits him into a weird engagement, you could just see him call GG. And reinforcements on the way, so this might be the bait. Turns around on it. Divine has to run away with his tail between his legs. Now keep in mind that wood line is also exposed. And Crackedy doesn't skip a beat, moves towards it. Longbow's not going to be effective here up against the sofa. They'll have to back away. Javelin's going to force the retreat of the villager line as well. Plenty of idle eco in the base of DivineDFP. Sure, you have got the network of castles to help you defend, but with the idle eco and the unit comp matchup here, you still have to favor the outcome for Crackedy. Double military advantage here. Javelin's able to counter the crossbows that are meant to be the solution, and the sofa's tanking everything in the interim to ensure that Crackedy sticks his boot in English land and refuses to list it.
Those knights were late to the party. They swung to the north and they just came back a little too late. At least there is the network of castles bonus to fight in, and it looks like Divine will repel this attack for the moment. But at what cost, again, you have to ask. He lost all the villager lead that he has had, 34 villagers having been killed already. It's neck and neck on the villager department, and the army count is just looking dominant there for Crackedy. I feel like this second wave is about to finish off Divine.
Yeah, the only thing, Nick, about this is Divine's neck now on the chop and block. I mean, I wouldn't even call that getting rid of him, to be honest. Crackedy's still a nuisance now. Sofa's diving in onto the wood line. Barely any wood income for DivineDFP. Enough javelins to still fare well up against the Knights. Sure, they're going to be diminished, but the returns are worth it. DivineDFP, an army of 7 is all he has left over. And look at the rebuild from Crackedy. Plenty of Sofas on the way, more relics to be obtained. He's going to have 5 relics soon, as well as the Villager Revived and the Pit Mines. There is no stopping the Malians.
Not at all. And there's also the passive food income. You just look at the eco, it's a night and day difference. Divine has less than 1,000 resources per minute. I'm not even going to finish that. It's a 2-0.
He's heard enough. He's out. I mean, DivineDFP, it's a tough matchup. Malians versus English is definitely something favored towards the English. We wonder what he was doing. I think the critical point where this game got too hard for DivineDFP is when he went for the third TC without securing any additional resources. Crackedy identified that. He pressure pointed that one location, knowing it was just a matter of time. And DivineDFP at that stage, he had nowhere to expand to, no way of building additional infrastructure and scaling his military force. It just felt like this was up against the ropes from minute 4. And Crackedy, as a result, will get his second point on the board in less than 20 minutes.
It's also that Castle Age age-up, you see. That was the first time that Divine really started pulling ahead in the villager count, and it got nullified by that age-up. And part of that was that he garrisoned 15 villas in the TC to kill 4 javelin throwers. But at the same time, instead of building the landmark with 30 villas, he was only building it with like 15. I feel like if he just jumps out, as you said at the time, just rushes that with everything he has, he could have minimized the casualties. I feel like with the villager count having been reset at that time, he was forced to go for that very unfortunate third TC that you mentioned, and from that point on, it was just a position of weakness for him throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Because if your opponent is targeting the villagers furthest from your TCs, they're dead anyway. So you might as well just get an extra second or two of build time. I think that was definitely one of the stingers, but like the nail in the coffin that really mattered was that third TC. That third TC didn't secure anything. It didn't even protect the wood line that it was meant to protect. And at least if you go for the northern wood line, you have like a pivot, right, back and forth between 2 wood sources, and you also have a bridge to build between the 2 TCs, your primary and the third. But this just didn't feel like the way. I actually liked Divine's approach to try and like hunker down and get Castle Age. It's just once he was there, he looked lost at that stage. No way to really punish Crackedy. And Crackedy even played that in a very reluctant way, right? We said he wasn't too greedy around that 4 resource vein spawn. He was kind of really logical about it. He split it up just in case he got rushed. And it kind of makes you wonder, if he had just been ultimately greedy, would it have even looked faster in this game? Would he have been done by 15 minutes? Quite possibly.
Well, it's a 2-0 lead now, as it is going to be Crackedy who pulls in the English for game number 3. Divine on the other side going with the Mongols, as we will head to the second home map. Wait a second. Oh, yeah. Let's take a look at those maps for a brief moment. Divine actually opted to go for his opponent's home map in game number 2, and he's going to pop out his first home map here in game number 3. It is going to be Canal. Now, we had a restart from what I heard, which means that we will have a couple of moments to discuss the standings of the day. I think it's time we take a look at those groups and see how the other matches have been playing out.
Show me. Let me taste the tears. Opening up. I assume we're going to be looking at Group D. Okay, we'll go for D. So Louis MT coming out 3-0. Was that against, I assume, Kaiser Johann?
Well, we can check. But Nomadon played Marine Lord. Lidakor is also coming in 3-0. Strong start for his season here in Call to Arms. And indeed, that was against Kaiser Johann, and Lidakor defeated Alyona 3-0.
Nothing too surprising here, right? Like, you expect usually the start to end up being practically all 3-0s, or mostly 3-0s. It's just the way the system's designed. But as we go on, we're expecting to get a lot more competition. But hello, look at last year. 3-2 against Shiki. Shiki, of course, not really the biggest of pushovers. If you haven't heard of him before, you probably should check out the EGC team tournament. That was where he really started to get a lot of prominence. Asian player, played on one of the Chinese teams. I think it was he on Penguin, I want to say was the team he was on.
Yeah, one of the Chinese teams. I think they've been kind of rotating players back and forth, but yeah, indeed, he was one of the more renowned team game players. kind of tried to play some 1v1 tournaments before with mixed success. At least takes 2 games away from Lash. So for him, the silver lining is that he already pulled ahead compared to many of his competitors, not having been 3-0'd.
Okay, he was on FYF, I believe. Yeah, so he was on FYF. They actually, in the team tournament, the Win Team Championship, they actually got knocked out by a Fat Penguin. That's why I was remembering it. But definitely a player I'm happy to kind of see competing here. Very close series between him and Lash. Thanks for the host earlier, Lash. I did notice that. As we look across the different groups, though, I mean, Zertan, Matisse dropping a game up against Voldemar. That's not too surprising. I haven't heard of Cami Nodal before. So interesting they were able to take a game. I'm assuming they took a game off of Matisse.
We'll check in a second. So Cami Nodal, he's been around. He's been a high-level player for a while, but we haven't really seen him in tournaments. You're right about that.
Dude, I was right. I don't know, like, I just kind of get it. I understand some of these matchups coming out that way. It's like, and also seeding is almost, I don't know the exact seeding, but in my mind, I can kind of feel it out. So yeah, it was Cami Nodal managed to claw 1 game off of Matisse, ultimately lost 3-1. And then Voldemar. That one I would have expected. Voldemar versus Zertan, I think playstyles make sense for this store, but that was one of the ones that could have been a 5-game series.
Yeah. Beast is yet to play Neutral Bear from this group. That is a set that we will show you in its entirety after the one that we've finished here. And then that means that we still have M7 playing against Evely. And last but not least, we have all but one series finished from Group A. You see Divine and Crackedy are playing it out right now. And it looks like we had 2 3-2s as well. Ramen taking a win over there. He took down Sanic, which is probably the biggest upset of the day so far.
Very interesting one. Really close series. Recon claim 3-0. I'm not too surprised there. I'm going to guess. Who did he go up against? Probably would have been, I want to say, Afinoy.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, nice. There you go. And Afinoy's played 2 series today, right? Or is that... Wait, that...
That must be a typo. That must be a typo. It's a 1-0.
Yeah.
Actually, that means 0-1.
Whoops. Numbers are hard, guys. I mean, 0 and 1, they're only 8 keys apart.
Depends on what keyboard you have, actually.
That's true.
There are some keyboards where you have 0 and 1 right next to each other.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I guess if you have like the num pad as well, right? But I don't do 100% keyboards anymore. I do like 80% ones. They're so much better. But someone we want to see is a better performance out of DivineDFP. I said that this is likely to be a 5-game series. I want to be delivered a 5-game series. I need Crackity to stop coming in with the soul read. But Lidakor, I've got a bad feeling the read is going to continue when I see a Mongol English matchup and think about the way these two play.
Well, here we go. We're jumping into Canal. Spawning in on the right side, it is going to be Divine with the red Mongols. To the left, it's Crackedy with the English in blue. Score is right now flipped, so bear with us for a moment until that gets fixed. It is Crackedy with a 2-0 lead in this best of 5 here in the opening session of Call to Arms. And this is going to be the first home map selection for Divine, who opted to go for Crackedy's home map in game number 2, and in the end lost it against the Malians, him being the English.
Well, this might be Divine's best opportunity of all the games. The French mirror, their playstyles, I feel like it was always going to benefit Crackedy. He had the perfect read. Game number 2 was an uphill battle. Malians versus English is tough on a map like Dry Arabia. If there was any place where DivineDFP can net himself a point, this is probably his best chance, especially if we see something like a Horseman opening to deny the fishing and prevent any sort of men-at-arms play. But instead, what I'm seeing is Crackedy not even trying to drop a Rax to start off with. He immediately goes into the docks. Will probably follow up with a Rax next to the docks in the next 30 seconds to a minute. On the other side, DivineDFP, because he's a Mongol player, he opens with the Ubu first, which is why we're yet to see a movement for a dock. But we will be getting that stables. I like this. The problem is I'm pretty sure that got scoured. That was like the worst time to go and build a stables. Oh, hello. So no intent to play the Dark Age military build, it's just going to be a defensive outpost. I do like this, though. The double villager, actually triple villager, is a very interesting pivot from Crackity compared to what we're used to seeing. It's cool as well because if he had scouted DivineDFP going for a dock of his own, these 3 villagers could have got there in time to deny it.
Yeah, it's always a factor when you look at the Dark Age of the English. Just having those villagers out there with the bows, it's always a big factor. Tower gets garrisoned, Khan gets repelled for the time being, with the first horseman already being on the way. But you look at this horseman play, and I feel like it's coming in too late. You have 3 villagers over here, there's a tower as well, and look at that. Walls will be built to prevent the horsemen from getting close to the tower. I feel like Crackity is fully conscious about the fact that Divine, if he has enough horsemen, he can commit against this. If the walls are complete, it's near impossible to commit against this position with the horsemen.
Yeah, and looks like he's going to move to start building that up now. It's just annoying to try and turn and hit the Khan as well, so he's not even bothering to give it that attention. Double horseman already on the way. The fact that Crackity started with the left side is a risky endeavor. In fact, I'm very surprised by this. If anything, you need to get that wall towards the Mongols up first. And the sheep, the sheep! Oh, you piece of...
He needs to kill it there.
Divine.
Yep. If you kill it there, the carcass will forever block the walls.
It got pushed. No, he didn't kill it. He had one opportunity. Horsemen are going to get in a little bit too late. So Outpost will get garrison in time. Not enough damage to clear it up. And sheep again. He refuses to kill it. He's just going to shuffle it out. The quick wall is on the way. Horseman being denied. Needs to get around. Outpost once more is going to be garrisoned, but the horseman count is escalating. DivineDFP now with 4 horsemen. They aren't bringing the apocalypse quick enough here. I think the walls will be complete.
Yeah, the walls should complete. There is still an opening out there.
Intentional gap, guys. It's just a nice little welcome area to the village.
All according to the
God.
plan over here. Nice micro back and forth, but many of those horsemen are taking a lot of damage, and you have no tools to heal them. In fact, first one is going to go down. Second one is heavily damaged. Third one as well. I don't think you can commit here. Yeah,
it's too late. Like, DivineDFP, the fact that he even queued more horsemen is worrying to me. He's putting himself further behind. He failed his objective here. He got forced to go ahead of time. He needed 6 horsemen to make this happen. The snipe through the wall almost works. Once again, it's going to fall just short. And now you've invested in a lot of horsemen, and I don't think you've achieved enough of it at all. You've idled yourself a long time. The fishing continues to escalate. I think Crackity could get a comparative feudal age timing at this pace.
Yeah, don't forget, like, Divine invested into a lot of horsemen, and he didn't have his own fishing eco here. So, sure enough, he might have a bit of a head start going into feudal age because he was on sheep, and you see he's got the food piled up. But, as you said, he's got no response to this fishing eco, and as much as he wants to torch this down from the other side of the river, that is not really realistic at this point.
I mean, he's done a good job being annoying here. I'll give him credit for that. It's like, it's a lot of idle time back and forth, but it's so tough to kill these. And, you know, keep in mind behind this, we haven't seen the big drop-offs yet. And DivineDFP is still not ready for a tech up. He's short on the food now. He's only just moved across the gold. He'll be ready to start teching up in about 30 seconds, 40 seconds. Crackity is a little bit more delayed because he's only now moving to gold. I assume he sent 3 villagers out there to get the right timing.
Yep. I feel like the big issue here for Divine was that he had a lot of food to work with, but he didn't send villagers to gold. He was probably planning to add some additional horsemen, and then once he saw the walls, he opted not to do that. So he didn't have the gold, but he was floating a lot of food. Ends up going up with the silver tree, which is always an intriguing option, especially when you face the English, who usually have a slow-moving army. This is one of those cases where I could see Divine using the mobility of those horsemen to secure that trade route either to the south or the north, and just exploiting the fact that Crackity, unless he plays horsemen, Crackity is always going to be slower.
I think Crackity can play horsemen, though. I think this is an Abbey of Kings game. You play Abbey of Kings, and you just match his aggression. And it's cool as well, because then even if your opponent goes Keshik, you have a solution. But check this. DivineDFP will not be denied. He's actually going to go into the aggressive dock, and he has exactly what he needs to buy into the emplacement. So Crackity is not having a fun time here, that's for sure.
Yeah, one thing to note with this map is that the closer you get to the middle, the more fish you have available. So with that dock coming up for Divine in the middle, he's pushing Crackity away from the most valuable part of the map when it comes to fishing. And sure enough, you have this tower here defending, But right now, Divine knows fully well that Crackity is starting to run low on available fish on his side of the map.
Yeah, and it's a counter hug, so Crackedy, he's not going to have a clear, immediate solution to this problem. Also means he can't try to outplay Keshik long term. I actually think that's something I love about the Abbey of Kings, because now that DivineDFP is going into his own fishing and also trade, the logical play for him in a prolonged feudal is mass Keshiks. Because you went counter hall, you don't really have a great answer to that. Your only option instead is to try and rush Castle Age.
Feudal Age now coming in here for Crackity. He's got a decent eco lead, but you see, a lot of these fishing boats are now being denied, and look at that. He's stacking into men-at-arms.
Yeah, so I think he just... Does he think there's an Archer's follow-up? I'm trying to like get the sound logic here. He might just be trying to flood. Like men-at-arms, if you want to clean up the docks and then rush your opponent's base, it's the best unit, right? But it's going to take time. A lot of time. Man, this is weird. I really would have expected Spearman if you want to go this direction. He has to know the trade's going on, and that's why Spearmen are also good, because they chase better than Men-at-Arms, because Men-at-Arms have a slow movement speed, right?
Yep.
This is weird, and now he's outnumbered. Like, this is worst case scenario, but you know how often you see like Mongols versus English with Dark Age units? And the actual better counter for Mongols was to not go Spearmen, but to go Horsemen, because you could pick your engagements.
Demo gets sniped by the tower over there.
One. Yeah, but it's like, I'm not sure if Demo is the best way to go anyway, unless you send 2 of them in. Because the fishing boats don't die immediately, right? It takes 2.
Yeah, definitely a weird choice. I guess he just wanted to slip past the tower out there, but Demo gets sunk. It looks like Men-at-Arms numbers are increasing. Divine hasn't been producing units for quite a while. You see, he just now started to add Keshik.
Yeah.
If Crackity just starts mixing in some Spearmen, this could be problematic for Divine.
And the reason Divine goes Keshiks, by the way, is like not only is it a decent unit up against the Men-at-Arms, but it's great on a map with fishing like this because you just keep running by and you throw torches at the fishing boats and you get healed. There's no kind of recourse the other way. But a little bit of horny horses going on here. Instead of fighting, they decide to rub up against each other. They're finally going to get involved. I love how useful this wall is now proving itself as he starts to move a few longbow into the formation. He needs to burn down that dock soon, though. Springald ship is on the way. That will deprive him further.
Yeah, don't forget, there's a tower close to that dock, though. So anytime that Springald ship pops out, it's going to be limited in movement by that tower. And this tower is also providing the network of Castle Zora here for Crackity. So part of the reason why those Men-at-Arms were so efficient in that fight was that attack buff that he got from the tower. This is such a strong point here for Crackity, and this is kind of the #1 staging ground for him to press on from.
It's another thing I don't like about that demo ship play from Divine. If he'd done demos to take out the outpost, it was a really strong play, but he didn't. He could have spammed 2 demos, taken out the outpost, and then that attack speed Ori you're talking about isn't even there. The arrow fire isn't there, so then you can follow up with a Springald and not be denied. It's kind of weird now that I think back to that. I think that was an opportunity for Divine to get further ahead, and he just kind of passed it up. Interesting. Well, trade at least is still going his way. Because Crackedy now with full static army can't afford to do anything other. Keshiks continue to be invested in. Meanwhile, Crackedy is only spears and men-at-arms. But if he gets forced to fight near this river, one archer ship could just ruin the entire fight for him.
I feel like that's not even a factor at this point, because look at the other side of the map. While we've been focusing on these fights, Divine has been trading behind this. You can see the little red dots moving to the north. He also has his own fishing eco. His eco is just so much better than what Crackity has now.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The trade has been going on this whole time, right? Because you have a static comp, you can't react to it. It's just free. Remember also this fishing, right? So Divine has kind of insulated himself in many different ways. You can even see it very blatantly when you look at the eco pop comparison, 44 to 57. And Crackity just went for siege engineering, so he's kind of going for this all-in move. It's reminiscent of when you used to see HRE mass men-at-arms in Feudal Age. He's doing something similar, but with the English.
Yeah, it is a scary composition, though. You see a lot of spears, a lot of men-at-arms, and it's not like there's a clear answer from Divine for either of these. The Spearman would just massacre all those Keshik, and as much as Divine's eco is great, if he loses that dock with the fishing eco, and if he just gets confined into his base, his trade and fish will disappear in the blink of an eye. I feel like there is a definitive window here for Crackity to break this eco advantage that Divine has right now.
So there is an answer. This is a weird answer because you're playing on Naval. It's the Archer ship. The Archer ship is the one way Divine can dictate fights. Like, look what's happening right now from Crackity. He can't hard commit in. He will just get kited. He's going to try now because he needs to address the Keshiks. If he gets around the torches, though, Divine not pulling back quickly here. His outpost's going to go down. Push back against the Springle ship and the Archer ship. He needs to move away from these. It's not even the full combat unit, and yet still the Archer ship's taking plenty of damage. This cross continues. I think you actually chase up river here now, because if you chase up river and the Archer ship follows, you can pinch it. But you need to be careful with the demos.
You gotta be very cautious here if you're Crackity. I think he's trying to take down the dock and then just probably pinch to the base at this point. I don't think you can commit against this anymore.
No, but this is so expensive for Crackity. You already see him the destroyed value. He's not having a great time here. And Divine, meanwhile, is getting further ahead. Double demo ship now. Looking for that Divine strike. Won't be able to get it. So it's like the dock is going to go down, but value has been extracted for DivineDFP. You can see it in the losses for Crackity. And nothing really gained, to be honest.
Yes, certainly. I'm actually surprised that we don't see a single combat ship here for Crackity. He would even have the power of the tower helping out. And I think it could have been so useful in this battle. We didn't see any of that, and as you said, dock went down, but the price to pay was so massive. This army is still intact though, but this kind of bought time for Divine to start mixing in archers. And as much as archers won't do very well against those feudal age men-at-arms, when you combine them with Kashyyyk, when you start building up your numbers, they will be able to hold their ground.
Barring any crazy slip-ups, this game is like 80% in favor of Divine right now, if not more. The escalation just continues. And, I mean, Crackity, if all he can do is keep taking out this dock, that's not going to be enough. In the next 2 minutes, I wouldn't be surprised if Divine makes a move for Castle Age. And Crackity's not really in a position to punish it right now. He's just bogged down by this weird naval affair. Finally, we'll be able to deny the dock again, but that trade continues to boom up. What are we at, 15? Yeah, 15 total. And he still hasn't done anything about it. I don't even know if he knows it's happening.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't think he scouted the landmark itself. You should still at least be able to anticipate it in a way. You know that you don't have vision over there, so you should know that there is a chance for trade. But I don't think it matters. I don't think he can do anything against that. He can't even cross the river at this point.
It's more a case of he should know what's going on because the outpost earlier wasn't giving like yam to everything, right? It was only giving it to Cav. So that might have been an indicator for him. I do love the Lombos, by the way. Lombos are fantastic against Navy forces. You just outrange everything so you can whittle them down like this. It's a shame he couldn't get them earlier, but that was the pressure that came out from the Horseman Mass at DivineDFP. It just prevented this play from being cleanly made.
Yeah, clock is ticking badly though for Crackity. Divine is piling up resources for Castle Age, and when he gets there, he will just respond with his own men-at-arms. It kind of feels like a now or never at this point for Crackity.
There are risk points for Divine. He's moved out into the mid-map to extract wood. If Crackity sniffs that out, like once he gets past this naval blockade, he could actually idle an incredible amount of eco on that north side. It's not just the traders anymore, it's the villagers as well.
Eco count heavily in the favor of Divine. That trade has not been touched at all, and finally, Crackity is going to send a scout over there. You see, he hasn't even scouted the market itself, though it always spawns at the same place. But this is the first time he ever visits this part of the map, and he sees a lot of traders.
Yeah, and it's not like you can send 2 or 3 Lombos here to tickle it down.
No.
You kind of have to react with everything, because you know your opponent has Keshiks, you know he has archers, he has things he can react with. I have to see what the choice is going to be from Crackity. He might just try to all in the main base, brute force a fight. But if he's going to do it, he has to do it soon. Because DivineDFP is not really as much the potential to Castle Age, it's the fact he can get all these tech upgrades quicker because he can afford to compared to Crackity.
And Divine's got 14 Kashyiks now. That's the concerning thing. Archers will cancel each other out. In fact, from Divine, he's just going to focus the spears, and once they are gone, the Kashyyyk can just slay.
They're going to go in straight away. They're fighting with the men-at-arms for now, but they're sustaining themselves. Lombos trying to trade out, but they're in range of the archers. Still looking like a fantastic fight for DivineDFP. He has the breakthrough, enough Keshiks to chase down, and the archers are going to assist with that. A pricey army for Crackity to lose as well. He should be able to eventually turn this around, but the cost is going to be high, and you need to realize that Crackity is yet to move out from the safety of his base for wood. This is going to force him to do so if he wants to replenish the Lombos.
It's too late. Archers also move faster than longbows, so do the Kashyyyks. This could be and should be a cleanup here for Divine. Crackity scrambling back all the way to this fortified position in the middle, and you feel like he's just back to the drawing board. All the spearmen are gone. All the men-at-arms are now gone. At least he stops that dock from being built. But at this point, his fishing eco is idle as well, if there is any of that left.
Wait. He's walling Divine. He's walling Divine. Okay, why react with forces when you can just do this instead? He's actually going to block off the trade. This could be a big deal. DivineDFP did throw away a lot of Kashyyyks there. Not easy to replenish. Crackedy, he needs to do more, though.
That's very true, but when you look at the destroyed value, it's neck and neck. But Divine has been having a much better eco for such a long time. He's getting close to getting up to Castle Age.
It's actually worse than that, because you just forced Kashyyyks to head north. Crackedy just moved north with his eco. He's eaten the boar. Once Divine cleans up these villagers, which he will, the next logical choice is to check the wood line. He's not just going to find the wood line. He's going to find 8 villagers on the board. And Crackedy can't afford to lose those villagers or that food source right now. He's barely scraping by 250 food income. Jesus, how many villagers did we bring out here? Was that 16? Did he think that the boars had been mating in the area? Because they have not been.
And look at that. It's the Kurotai. Divine wants to finish this game. It's not like he needs any additional gold, so it makes some sense that he goes for the Kurotai over the Step Redoubt. He does have to trade, but that's just going to buff this army even more so.
I wouldn't be surprised if he just calls at the moment the tech-up happens. You're not in a position to really do anything, right? You're actually defensively reacting, so you can't even be delusional about this assault that can occur, this one opportunity. Like, you're out massed militarily, you're now out-teched as well, you're out-ecoed, you're essentially out of this game. But for Crackity fans, the good news is he already has 2 points to the board, so Divine is the one who has to be delivering like this.
Yeah, this is a very big window for Divine here in this game. He really wants to avoid getting 3-0'd here just because of the standings in the group. And also, as much as we've talked about the first 2 games, games where Divine might have felt a little frustrated due to the ways he lost some of them, I feel like this is a great way to regain momentum and regain faith for Divine, and we could see the first steps being taken towards a reverse sweep, possibly.
Possibly, but Crackity refused to give in for now. Looks like a throw away the Lombos just to extract as much value as possible because he knows they're going to be irrelevant soon. Fishing, being pushed back. Demo ship is going to move in. A damn good hit. Double Stream ship gets sniped down in the end. The Lombos are still proving a nuisance here. Crackity doing all of this, of course, to cover his tech up. He's about to get the gold required. I think he might be forced to go for a white tower here on that wood line.
He's going to pull back the longbows over here to the choke point. He managed to take down quite a few traders here, but he's going to sacrifice all the longbows to the Kashyyyk now. Such a costly fight once again, and just when he's about to get to Castle Age, just when he would have the option to upgrade these, he will have very little to actually upgrade.
Yeah, he did at least snipe out the Khan, so he blinded Divine on the vision front a little bit. And that's also annoying because Divine has got the Kurotai, right? So he's not benefiting from all the buffs that you get because Khan's now dead. And he's going to get White Tower on the tree line as anticipated. It's the only way he stays in this game. Like, he's drained his wood back at home, and he's going to need the wood to make a transition to a new unit type. Not to mention the gold next to it.
Yeah, White Tower nearing complete. Uh-oh, KP. Crackedy's lucky if he gets away with this. Kurotai has been set up very close to that White Tower, but it looks like the landmark will complete.
No,
it could have been
he's
devastating.
Absolutely fine. Yeah, but it's the chances that getting spot were very low because the Khan dying. Like, I'm pretty sure he died anyway. Is he still alive? Let's check. He got sniped by the Lombos, right?
Yeah, you don't see it at the top of the screen. He's gone.
Yeah. So, like, that was the detail that mattered. Once he done that, Crackity was fairly safe. It's a bit of a flip point, but Divine's more likely to die for the main base than he is to look for that, right? Because he feels like he's on a timing push with the Kurotai. And into the Rams we go. He's already got 3 of them shuffling in. Crackity limited on his defense force. He doesn't want to take a fight, right? When you tech up like this, you have to wait for your upgrades. That's an opportunity for Divine to strike.
Rams being mixed in over
That's
here.
That's a good play with the Lombos. He's actually, 5 of them will kill all the traders. Because I think, what is it? It's only, well, he has got 2 ranged armor. So it might not be enough.
I feel like Divine should just shift all of them to the south. And Crackedy's got absolutely nothing over there. He will know about this if that happens, because he will see all of these traders disappear from the north. But he's got basically no mobility, no chance to harass those to the south.
And let the siege commence. He moves in. Gorotai needs to shuffle a bit closer. He wants to get the full buff area. Keshikun chasing the villages beyond. Army on the move, but far away from assistance. And the White Tower down to half HP already. In fact, this goes down, this is game. Crackedy's got 20 villages on there and nowhere for them to retreat. And the Rams will settle for nothing less than complete and utter destruction.
The White Tower doesn't have boiling oil on it. There was just nothing preventing those archers from camping the bottom. Barely any damage output coming in from the White Tower. Crackedy calls it, and Divine survives in this set. It is now a 2-1 for Crackedy.
Great play by DivineDFP. The early pressure didn't really pay off to the full extent he was looking for, but that follow-up dock really patchworked the issues of his early opening. After that, the fact that Crackedy was never able to address that trade, never really even tried to scout for it, that was just the classic Mongol matchup, right? It's why Mongols right now, I think they're the second best performing Civ in high-level games, barely behind Chinese, in fact, and they are the second most played Civ, and for good reason. The trade is so oppressive. The way it gradually builds up and forces you to react, it's a difficult thing to do for most comps, but the comp that Crackedy was running and the focus on the river guaranteed that it was just not on the table for him. You saw how delayed he was getting into longbows because he's facing horsemen. In the end, it just feels like a matter of time before one gets clawed back, and as a result, we get at least the beginnings of a competitive series here as DivineDFP gets on the board.
Yeah, as much as when you look at game number 2, you felt like there was a civilization advantage for Crackedy with the Malians against the English, you kind of feel the same in the favor of Divine for game number 3. As you said, that atrocious lack of mobility that you have for the English is something that makes it extremely difficult to punish this Mongol trade. And as much as we had skirmishes in the middle, as much as we had good moves on both sides in the middle, this game really came down to the fact that this trade was never really harassed for the first half of the game. Possibly even not even being scouted. We actually don't know if Crackedy anticipated it or not, but truth is, he didn't have a chance or a window to harass that trade in, meant that Divine could just get away with a very powerful eco throughout the game.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's the classic Mongol, right? Like, Mongol is the one that more than any other Civ still embodies the most broken form of trade we've seen in the past, right? And it just needs to be addressed. If you don't send something to block that, it's a gradual build-up thing. It's very hard to assail. Mongols, of course, getting the big benefit of the Silver Road as well. But we move past that into another map that potentially could see trade at some point, as we're going to get an Abbasid versus Rus matchup on Frisian Marshes. An interesting one, actually. Abbasids, they're kind of more situational, but sometimes they do prove quite volatile on this map. I think Rus is one of those matchups it fares worse against. Rus, French, these type of ones tend to be a nuisance for Abbasid players. And I think this is one of those matchups where we're about to see a difference again from game 3, right? Game 1, game 2 was Divine turtling. Game 3, which he won, was him being offensive. Game 4, this clash, I think we're about to see total mode Divine again.
Well, it is Frisian Marshes, so Divine once again opts to go for the opponent's home map, meaning that if we get to a game number 5 at Decider, that will be played on the terms of Divine on his home map. That's definitely a thing to consider. On the other hand, Crackedy won the first game that was played on his own home map, so you feel like this is kind of an uphill battle here for Divine. If he gets through this hurdle, though, you feel like there is a realistic chance for a reverse sweep over here.
I think it's problematic that he picked Abbasids for Frisian and not Lipany. Because now I think Crackedy will just insta-pick Abbasids for the final map. So, like, what do you have left at that stage if you're Divine? Malians? I don't think you're doing that. Ottomans? I don't like that there either. I'm not really sure, like, if he has a great pick left for Lipany in that phase, right? Because Rus is gone. HRE with a timing attack isn't available. HRE is bound on both sides. You could go China. Like, maybe China's his best, like, final Ura when you go Lipany. You play, like, China versus Abbasids. But I haven't seen... I'm trying to think, like, what the stats are like for that matchup more recently. I want to say that's still Abbasid favored. So I'm a little bit worried about what happens, even if we get to game 5. But before we even get to that, we have to talk about this uphill battle in 4. Like, Rus is one of those picks. When you're playing a totally defensive Civ, it will exploit you, similar to the French. Ways he could play this, I think it has to be a military wing opening from DivineDFP. He actually needs to put Crackedy into a reactionary phase. But with how
100%
powerful
agree.
Kremlins are, I don't know if that's going to be enough.
Look, when you think back to the history of this matchup, Rus versus Abbasids, this is the matchup that pioneered the use of this very heavy archer composition that we have seen from the Rus, this bore into spam archers type of an approach. And I feel like we could see a version of that over here from Crackity if he is in the role of the attacker. He has a crazy food income potentially from the shorefish, and he can leverage that to just flood archers. So as you said, Divine kind of needs to create kind of a segment in the early parts of Feudal Age in which he is the aggressor to slow down this potential escalation that could come in from the Rus here.
Oh, we'll see if he can do it. He's keeping the dream alive. He got one on the board. Can he do it once more? Can he have Crackity up against the wall instead? Let's find out. Crackity's still on match point as we move into game number 4. And nothing gluttonous here from Crackity. Notice he picks up most of the safe sheep immediately before moving further out. We've seen players actually just hoist themselves in their own petard in the past when they just try to come back for those later. He's not going to be a greedy boy. DivineDFP. I'm looking at this spawn, and I mean, it's all forward spawning resources. It's a bit scary. It makes me think even more this has to be military wing. I'm actually especially concerned about how spread his gold and stone line is. They couldn't be further apart in this one.
You know what I'm looking at here, KP? That boar spawning right next to Divine's berries. That is so awkward. If it was the other way around, you could say, hey, Crackady's got a huge buff from that, but it's on the opposite side, so I guess the only benefit that we could see here from either side is Crackity being able to pull this to harass the berry villagers with.
I think what's dumber is the fact that one boar is spawned there, and then the other one could not be further away from Blue's base. Good lord. This is not a fight for Divine to take. Just take the sheep, go home, accept that you're not gathering more. Actually, I say that. He went double scout. Oh, yeah, well, you have to against Rus, right? It's still annoying. I mean, this is something I'm surprised hasn't been reworked. I'm curious, actually, what the consensus is amongst pros. I know in the past, a lot of them didn't like the mini-game of the Rus. I feel like that mentality hasn't changed, that it's still kind of a weird, cumbersome element of early game. But we're going to have to keep an eye out to see how Crackity's doing. He's already cracking into the wheelbarrow. He's got some way to go before he'll have his free tech up. Typically, if you can't at least afford your tech up without having to build a mining camp as a Rus player, something has gone direly wrong.
Yeah, so far, just casual Dark Age stuff on either side. We have 3 scouts for Crackity. How's the bounty looking like? It looks like it's pretty good, based on the fact that he managed to grab Wheelbarrow, and he is going to have enough gold for Feudal Age, of course. So it's probably in the mid-250s, which is kind of what you want at the very least for a Rus player.
Yeah, like maybe 210 at this stage now. It's what you'd expect. Like I said, if you don't at least get your tech up plus Wheelbarrow, something has gone really wrong. So it's a good sign. Well, that's promising.
Whoa!
245, yeah. So there you go. You should be able to get the tier 2 then. Maybe there's like 1 wolf left. So that's nice as well. And it is going to be the military wing. Like, this is the only way to go. But the problem is, like I said, if your opponent goes Kremlin, it invalidates that opening a lot. Because, the one, they've got this defensive landmark to get some holdings. And 2, the gremlins are so fast, they can easily chase down your initial units.
Yeah, military wing on the way here for Divine, as anticipated in many ways. Now, looking at the base for Crackity, though, he's got both of his stones close to each other, but there's a crumbling coming up right next to it, and it looks like he's heading towards the stone pile. Second TC will be on the way, and it's likely going to be dropped on the shorefish, something that we see very frequently from players, both with the Rus, but also with the French when they play this map.
Well, it's more than just the shorefish, it's about the gold as well. Because he doesn't have a safe gold. Like, even with this Kremlin placement, the gold's too far forward, right? So instead, TC gets dropped for like a double or triple pond and gold, and then you have all options available to you. Probably be a few knights, I'd expect. One big issue DivineDFP is going to have is it kind of feels like he has to pressure, but if he chooses to pressure, you know, these knights can find a lot of value in your own base because of how split your resources are with the gold to the north and the stone to the south. So, attack begins. Is it going to be the stable opening for Crackity? I imagine not. I think he just wants the most optimal timing on this second TC first. Oh, that yoink. Oh, a little penny pinch. He'll take everything you can get. 4 sheep. I think there's at least 3 sheep left in the back. I think you already have 1 following. So DivineDFP missing out on some easy stuff right there. He's lucky we're not dealing with Old Roost where they got bounty for those.
Yeah, here come the spears, here come the archers. The real question is, what kind of damage can you cause with these if you're Divine? In fact, he's actually just patrolling them back at home. No desire to attack with them, but you feel like it's a little lackluster if you just go for the military wing and you use these troops to just defend. You kind of allow Crackity to do whatever he wants at this point. You will give him all the map control he needs to get that second TC going, and you really don't feel like you've benefited much from that military wing having been dropped.
Well, he can build it into a later timing slightly, right? Like, I don't blame him for this. You have to really think about Crackity's layout. Divine scouted the base, and then he made the choice to stay defensive because, well, one, the Kremlin blocks the obvious target. So where would you go otherwise? You either dive past the Kremlin north side, or you go wide on the west and come in on the backwood line. Either way, you're running close to the primary TC, and then the Kremlin spawns those gremlins, and they snipe you from the back, so you have no retreat. I think it's just a logical choice out of Divine. If he went in with those 4 units, they would have just died, and all they would have achieved is costing Crackity 20 food or 40 food.
Yeah, for sure. It's a matter of committing to the military wing itself. That's, you know, in hindsight, a little weak compared to some alternative options. Obviously, as you said, it's a difficult choice to make. He needs to consider the possibility of Crackity playing aggressive, so he needs something to defend against that, and he wants to make sure that his second TC gets dropped. On the other side, as you said, it's difficult to commit against Crackity's base, but the end result is still the same. You have Crackity here with a second TC getting up faster. This second TC is also a little awkward over here, kind of offset from the gold. And I also feel like this second TC is just a lot better for Crackity. You see, it secures the fish
absolutely.
and the gold.
It's because he has to play defensive. He doesn't know what's coming. He doesn't have great force to defend. But like, I think the better way to think of this military wing choice, because I know it's going to get judged a lot, is, and I can't believe I'm calling 2 spearmen and 2 archers this, it's a nuclear deterrent. That's exactly what it sounds so stupid, but that's literally what it is, right? It's Cold War era stuff right now, which is fitting because we've got Roos in this game, I guess. But the whole point is, like, if you don't get military wing, Crackity can just open with the stables or send the gremlins in. Either way, he'll idle you out. So the better choice is you get the military wing and you go for your second TC without having to build any military production buildings, because you would have been forced to otherwise. So I think that was the thought process for Divine, is like, it doesn't feel great, but the alternative is worse.
Yeah, it's the principle of playing not to lose rather than playing to win, kind of. He's trying to play this safe, and I don't really fault him for that. If he's got a surefire game plan for this game, it's better not to go crazy and just throw the game here at minute number 8.
What happened, by the way? Because I don't feel like Crackity should be 5 villages ahead. His TC hasn't been up that long, right? Did Divine miss production?
The second TC was much delayed from Divine, but I'm actually wondering if he had sufficient food. Crackity must have had enough food. He's been on shortfish and on the sheep for a while. But yeah, there's a lot of sheep.
I feel like the TC hasn't been up that long, right? Like, it hasn't been up like that amount of difference, right? It's something happened here, surely. Maybe I'm imagining it, but it feels like there may have been a lack of resources to produce enough villagers or something.
Yeah, it's a little tricky because you see that Divine, for a brief moment, he caught up to like a villager gap of about 3, so it's not actually a pristine 5 villagers lead. It's more like 3.5-ish, but it's just it probably comes down to the timings of the TCs.
Yeah, one of them will be fresh foodstuffs, which is fair enough. But there's still feels like there's a bigger gap. Yeah, I think he missed production. Like, because I was thinking to myself, like, the Roos TC hasn't been up that long, Like, obviously, you're going to lose out on one because you need fresh food stuff. It's way too good not to get. But that still puts you behind, and you're already further behind by the fact your opponent, as you were highlighting, is fishing, and you are not. And the Archer mass just outproducing him there as well. I mean, it's problematic. The annoying thing about Roost that makes him so stupid as well is like you really can all in your opponent. Like you just make the classic monkey noises and go, right? Because if your opponent tries to counterattack, you just mash gremlins and you have a defense. It's so frustrating.
Archer's now coming out from both sides over here, but as you said, it's a 5 villagers lead when you look at Crackity. So that 5 villager lead, or like at least 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, that differential is something that will give you a long-term advantage. That is 3 to 5 villagers difference for the foreseeable future at the very least. And you see Crackity is leveraging that to beat his opponent to Castle Age by a mile, will allow him to start picking up those relics. And you feel like this Feudal Age was just so much more effective for Crackity. Opts to go for a lovely position for the High Trade House, but it will mean that he won't have the Warrior Monks right from the get-go. He's going to have to drop a Monastery for them.
Now, the more I think about it, like, he did go for the second scout, right? So that explains another. Maybe it's, like, not... I still feel there's, like, maybe a very, very small misproduction, but, like, not as big as we were thinking when you think about the scout as well. I do wonder if he got fresh foodstuffs super early, like he always intended to go second TC. Then it feels a bit more efficient. But yeah, this... I don't know what you do against this tech up. Like, this is so far behind, right? You're going to see the flash of the tech up. You are nowhere near ready for your own Castle Age. You don't have an army that's actually big enough to do anything. And once you do accrue the resources for a tech up, which is going to take you probably about 2.5 to 3 minutes, you then have to wait almost 2 more minutes.
High Trade House completes, and look at the resources available for Crackity. He's got fully loaded, I guess, I don't know, piggy banks? It's probably more than just piggy banks, but he can afford a lot of techs over here. He's queued up 5 man-at-arms as well. He's just cruising right now.
He's like, bro, if people won't let me play China, I'll just like play that strat as a difference if just mass men-at-arms incoming, no counter in sight, right? You can't go camel archers, that takes way too long to escalate. You can't get tech up quickly, and Crackity knows this. You're kind of forced to do this weird all-in, but I don't like what's going to happen because one of the things that makes Roos one of the hardest civs to punish for a greedy Castle Age timing is the tickets. The Gremlins upgrade per age, and he hasn't been forced to use a single ticket. If we check, he has to have like, what? I want to say 7, 8 tickets at this point?
Yeah, it's also the timing of this push here, KP. You see, by the time he arrives, all the Castle Age techs will be in for Crackity. He's just now finishing the range defense, although that's only the Feudal Age tech. But veterancy on the archers will be there. He's going to have some men-at-arms as well. As you said, the militia is still available from the Kremlin. Down Center Fire helping out as well. He's got all the tools he needs to hold off this assault.
Yeah, and just the army difference isn't big enough, right? When you consider the premium units on one side, not on the other. I mean, even with Phalanx, like, I know we saw some cool things earlier from Mista today when he was able to just out-spear the men-at-arms, the Gulams in that case, but reminder that that's a more likely armored unit for a start. I mean, it's just, it doesn't bode well. He's forced to do a full retreat. He's still nowhere near tech up. And the scouts reveal how desperate things are getting for DivineDFP. I think Crackedy is getting ready for the push timing. He'll be running right across the field in the next 30 seconds. Whoops, bit ambitious. I think he came for relics, but he thought he came for blood.
I think he was too much of a believer. He believed in himself. He believed in whatever superior power to propel him to victory. Falls flat, gets picked off, but now you see this army has been discovered and it's now being chased down. Divine on the way to Castle Age, but it is going to be a flat 145. He needs to wait for this. It's going to be the longest 2 minutes of his life, I must say.
And the villagers are going to get raided as well. Like, you can already see this coming a mile off. You know what it is, actually? Why that monk decided to attack them? He was looking for divine objects. DivineDFP. Ah, it makes sense. I get it now. But I don't get what the play is here for DivineDFP. He is in a hole.
Oh, it's so sad, right? Especially when you consider that the food he needs, the much-needed food, it's right here. Not just the berries, but also the shorefish. Basically, all available food is exposed, and now it's being pressured. On the other side, Crackedy moved out for the shorefish in Feudal Age, but there was basically no combat. He had all the safe access, And now look at this, just the Man-at-Arms dominating this battle over here. Not much of a chance here for Divine to fight this.
The one Man-at-Arms that he couldn't even kill, like it just, he still hasn't killed it. All of those troops, and they only just killed one of these guys. I mean, he's going to be pushed back in. Tech Up's coming through in 30 seconds, but that still feels like a century away. He's going to push back against the Archer Mass. More Men-at-Arms on the way. In fact, the Men-at-Arms now turn on the Archers. They're forced to fight, then push forward. They can't retreat. But now DivineDFP will at least buffer away Crackedy. But remember, behind this, Crackedy now has access to all relics. He's already now wheeling his second one back home.
And this is just the first wave, KP. 16 Men-at-Arms on the field, but 17 more in queue for Crackedy.
Just build more Raxes. You've got 1,000 wood. Come on, Crackedy.
Yep. He just needs a little more production, but those Men-at-Arms are coming through right now. And you see Divine up in Castle Age, but to what avail? He's losing eco right now, has dropped by quite a few villagers. So much idle time, so many casualties in a moment. He's trying to get veterancy for the Archers, but the crossbows, they're nowhere to be found just yet.
Go, go, go. Deeper, deeper. Woodline could get pinched at this rate. Men-at-Arms are going to wrap around. This is now a bad fight for DivineDFP. Archer upgrade, still about 30 seconds away. He won't have any Archers left by then. He's at least got the Golems coming out, which should be able to clean up the Archers fast. But really, at this stage, barely any Archers. It doesn't even feel like it's worth completing that tech. Still so many Men-at-Arms coming. And in the meantime, relics continue to be hoovered up. I mean, Crackedy, the only thing I'd say in this game is clean up your wood, mate, but everything else is hitting the spot.
Yeah, it's too little too late for Divine now. As you said, Archer upgrade will finish, but he has 4 Archers left on the field. Just a gorgeous timing here from Crackedy, striking before those upgrades hit. A handful of crossbows will be mixed in, but you see, Crackedy's numbers are just overwhelming at this point. And he doesn't even have the proper production to pop out those 21 Men-at-Arms that he has in queue.
If he'd optimized that, like, this game is already over. But because it's been a trickle, there's an opportunity. But the opportunity cost is high. I mean, these Men-at-Arms standing under TC, clubbing people in the face. DivineDFP is scraping along on his knees at this point, being dragged by the leash that Crackedy's put upon him. 300 food income a minute is not going to get you a solid army. And if Crackedy just slows down and boxes him in, this is all over. And in fact, Crackedy has gone for, I believe, a double forward siege workshop. He's going to take his time now. He's going to make it a slow death.
Indeed, now population heavily in the favor of Crackedy forward siege workshops. Not just one, but 2 coming up as well. And Divine is just being deprived of food. He's at 300 food per minute as compared to 1,500 from Crackedy. Confined into his base with resources running out, you really feel like there is just no way back into this game for him now.
I'm sorry, I'm just watching the Men-at-Arms count. I'm starting to feel he still has like 2 racks. Just like that. Can I get a racks count? I'm a bit perplexed by it at this point.
It's because he's switching to Knights,
It's
KP.
3
Come
racks.
on.
Oh, man. I reckon, like, Crackedy will know as well. After until we sit in there struggishes, like, this probably could have been a lot more vicious, a lot faster. But look at this. DivineDFP, I don't think he even knows about the siege workshops. He's going to be forced to fight where Crackedy's standing. He's not going to have a choice in this matter.
Yeah, it's...
Mangoes.
Oh, that could be juicy.
Go for the gate. Go for the gate. No. That would have been huge. If he ran straight for the gate, I don't think Divine can get past him. But instead, he will get back home safely. I don't think there's going to be much safe about this for long. Ram's now being queued up by Crackedy as well. It's going to force Divine back to his base.
Yeah, Divine has to take the long route to the south over here, actually. He ran into the siege workshops, decided to take a detour to the south. But now Crackedy, he's on cruise control mode at this point. He's going to have all 5 relics on the map. Gigantic eco lead. Springboard's not coming out here for Divine, but he's about to be flooded with Men-at-Arms, some Knights, Archers as well coming in. Well, looks like the final relic isn't going to be taken, at least by Crackedy.
Always fortitude on the way as well, so that Knight transition is going to smack Divine in the face so hard, it's going to knock him into next week. TC already down to half HP. Even with the torch damage resistance, it's simply not enough. And well, that eco lead is simply not enough for Crackedy. He wants to keep going. In fact, he might just go Imperial at this rate. I'm watching that resource count. He's not far off pop cap. If DivineDFP doesn't want to wave the white flag in the next 2 minutes, he's just going to tech up. Those are slightly exposed Springles. Luckily, he has got the crossbows. If that Mango gets one shot, though. Ooh.
He's creeping up.
Ooh.
Nice use of the Springles to hold it back. Beautiful micro.
Yeah,
this is as good as it gets from Divine. I just feel like the game is just too far gone at this point. He got the maximum out of this fight. It's just too little too late.
And those Springles aren't safe anymore. He just doesn't have enough troops to defend them anymore. I mean, this just feels so bad. Like, you need to address the men-at-arms, but the archers are killing everything. The Ghoulems, remember, they have less armor, right? So they get stinged a bit more by normie archers, and these premium crossbows are being countered by a cheap-ass bow.
I think Crackedy will drop the Spaskaya Tower. I feel like he's going Imperial, but with the position he has, it's going to be a Spaskaya in your face at this space.
Divine is desperately trying to get a castle. But he's like, this is my one way. Buddy, I've got bad news for you. Your opponent is currently floating 5,000 resources, and he's about to let you know. That should be the moment. Crackedy, he didn't make it a clean 3-0 sweep, but he will end this series in style.
That's a message sent there by Crackedy. That's like, that's my series, this is my win, and boy oh boy, it is his indeed. Finishes off Divine in a 3-1 fashion. Decisive final game over here. We had a good run for Divine in the previous game, but the rest of the games just felt so one-sided in the favor of Crackedy.
Yeah, just really well played. I mean, we said this was going to be an uphill battle. Abasses versus Roos doesn't feel that great on Frisian Marshes. I think also, like, the game plan, we mentioned these kind of nuclear components. Like, you have to go military wing, because if you don't, you'll be raided. But by going military wing, you can't do anything with it either. It also, the rough thing I always see in military wing is it makes you predictable in what your transitions are going to be for unit types because of boot camp. We saw that earlier today, in fact, in Dumu's series, where the moment he saw his opponent went military wing, he knew that he couldn't mass cavalry to match. These are the type of like dynamics and the reads that matter a lot. As a result, Crackedy able to take the win. Not clean. Divine does at least get a point on the board, and that'll be big for him considering how many players have dropped series 3-0 today.
It's still, at least there is like a silver lining here for Divine. He takes away a game from Crackedy, could be very valuable when it comes to tiebreakers, but Crackedy is the one to move up to 1-0 when it comes to sets.